Is it okay for people who are non-African to wear Ankara fabric? Do the prints on Ankara fabrics have an actual meaning? And would I offend people if I wore Ankara fabric? How do you look after Ankara fabric? What is Ankara fabric? What's the difference between Ankara fabric and African wax fabric? What's the origin of Ankara fabric? Is Ankara fabric actually made in Africa? These and many more questions we're going to be answering during today's Q&A. And if you're ready, I'm ready. Let's go. Hello, my name is Juliet Uzo of SewSewNatural.com, a place for people who like to create their own clothes, own their style, and showcase them fearlessly and shamelessly for everyone to see. So you are welcome to the channel. I am really pleased with the outpouring of love and support that we had on social media during Ankara Fabric Appreciation Week. Myself and Lena King. We put up this story on Instagram and the questions came pouring in. So I'm here to answer those questions for anyone who's unsure about how to work with Ankara fabric. So I'm going to have my phone here with me, so I don't want to appear rude, but the questions are here on the phone. First things first, Ankara fabric actually means African wax fabric. It's the same thing as Dutch wax fabric, and they are very vibrant, colorful fabrics that are mainly made using 100% cottons, even though on the market these days there are different blends and you have some of them that are printed on polyester mix kind of fabrics. So it's worth keeping an eye out for the really good quality ones, because obviously on the market you're always going to have different ranges of products. These fabrics were originally manufactured by the Dutch for the Indonesian textile market, and this was many years ago. And the prints got really popular in the West African countries because of the tribal-like patterns. As you know, storytelling is a huge part of African culture, and African wax fabrics are a way of telling those stories from different times in the past. So a lot of the questions here are related to caring for the fabrics, pre-washing, that type of thing. So Ankara fabrics are very stable fabrics and they don't have much drape to them. Some of them have more wax coatings than the others. So it's really important to wash them. You need to pre-wash them before using them, just to eliminate a little bit of the wax coating on the fabrics. And when we say pre-wash, we mean to use a mild soap to wash your fabric. They don't require any harsh detergents and they don't require any hot water, because hot water and harsh detergents kind of eliminate the color from your fabric, and these fabrics are normally very colorful and very vibrant, and sometimes you have the colors running into the others, so you just don't want that, which is the reason why you are advised to use mild soaps, and hand washing is preferable to using a machine. If you have to use your machine, give it a cold wash, but then if you are after a less stable feel to your Ankara material when you are working with it, it's best to use a tiny little bit of salt in the washing process, and it kind of breaks down the fibers in the fabric, and that gives it a bit more of a soft feel. But that's dependent on what you're going to be using your fabric to create. Before washing your Ankara fabrics, it's also very much advisable to remove the label on your fabric, because those labels do not get removed by putting it in the washing machine or by dissolving it with water or just picking it off. It doesn't work. I have a video showing how to remove those sticky, pesky labels from your Ankara fabric coming up after this video here on the channel, so keep an eye out for that video. Ankara fabric is such an easy fabric to work with and doesn't require any special sewing machine foot. You don't also need any special sewing needles, just your universal needle will do just fine. However, you need to bear in mind what you are using your Ankara fabric for. If you are going to be using your Ankara fabric for creating bags, which means they have interfacing, or you're working with lots of layers of Ankara fabric and something else like denim, then do consider the type of material you're going to be adding onto your Ankara fabric, and that will then determine what kind of needle you're going to be working with. As a personal preference, I prefer to use between 3 and 3.5 millimeter stitch length when I work with Ankara, because it's nice. It gives it a nicer look, but always test on a swatch before you create your garments. Make sure that you've got the right stitch length that looks appealing to you, because everyone's different. As we all know, cotton does fray, so Ankara fabric is best for you to overlock those raw edges. If you do not have an overlocker, use your preferred finishing technique. Some people prefer to pink Ankara fabric using pinking shears. I actually really like using pinking shears for Ankara fabric because it's a stable fabric and it comes out beautiful. You've got the nice zigzag line, so it's excellent for pinking. You also have your overlocking stitch or your zigzagging on your sewing machine. That is also ideal. But some people like to do things like a flat felled seam, and some people like to do French seam. So it's completely dependent on what you have and what you are comfortable with. Okay, so when it comes to selecting Ankara fabrics, this is really, really important. First things first, you need to go to a reliable source. And when I say reliable source, I mean someone that is tested and proven to provide really good quality fabrics. The ideal thing to do would be to actually physically go into a store to buy these fabrics, but I do appreciate the fact that not everyone has access to stores that stock these fabrics. So the best thing to do would be to read reviews, get recommendations from people, to get a vendor online who does have very high grade Ankara materials. But then if you are like me who prefers to go down the tactile route, the best thing to do would be to feel the texture of the fabric. You need it to feel like cotton. You want cotton, so stay away from the fabrics that have that papery feel, that are extremely, you can tell when fabric has a bit of polyester in it, so stay away from the ones with a polyester mix, because those ones will not last as long. As they do come across as very good, but they are not as high grade as the ones that are made of cotton. So keep an eye out for those. As a guide, the more expensive ones, the better. But you also need to keep an eye on your budget. So when you walk into a shop, you would have those that are, say for example, $5 or £5 or €5, and then you'd have those that are €10, $10 or £10, whatever it is, wherever you are in the world. And then you have those that are €25 or $25 or £25. Stay away from the 5 range. You don't want those ones, because these fabric merchants stock a wide range of these fabric in order to attract a range of buyers. You need to look out for the ones that are not down the low range price, because those are the ones with a papery feel and are not nice to wear. They might look okay for upholstery, but they don't last as long as. Ankara fabric comes in bundles, so you will get a bundle of 6 yards. There are lots of people who sell Ankara fabrics online, and I am compiling a list of vendors who sell these Ankara fabrics both online and in store. So that would go on my website in order for you to get access to the fabric in case you want to. So I have a video in the description box below that shares tips and tricks for buying fabrics online. Please check out that video because it has some really helpful tips, and those tips also apply to buying Ankara fabrics online. Do the prints have meanings? And if so, are there any that are culturally sensitive? Now, Ankara fabrics come with a range of patterns and different tribal kind of prints on them. lots of them have stories behind them. So it's worth asking questions and finding out what they mean. However, wax print manufacturers nowadays create modern contemporary designs and patterns that are easy for modern day people to include in their wardrobes. Those tribal looking fabrics are still there out on the market for those who like that type of thing. However, the modern contemporary designs are also available. So it's worth having a look to find out what suits your wardrobe, especially those people who do not want to use tribal patterns in order not to offend people. There are some cloths, some specific cloths that are created for specific tribes, and those ones really do require a bit of, respect. I'm not aware of any of those apart from the kente cloth of the Ashanti tribe in Ghana. The underlying message behind using Ankara fabrics is, as long as a person isn't using Ankara material and copying a traditional cultural garment, then it's fine. So those are not originally from Africa. They were just adopted into African culture because of the tribal patterns on them, and the fabric also is suitable for the climate down there. I want to respect black traditions. Is it okay for white people to wear Ankara fabrics? It's okay for white people to wear Ankara fabrics, in my opinion. It was created by the Dutch and it was made for the Indonesian textile market, and Africans adopted it and brought it into their culture. I believe it's there for everyone. However, it's been ingrained into the heritage, the African heritage. Where people have a problem with it is when people try to exploit that cultural heritage for profit or for any other gains. That's where people have a problem, and it's more that's leaning towards cultural appropriation. So when a sewer, a person who creates their own clothes, sees a fabric, buys it and creates it, not copying any traditional garments and not doing it for profit gains or whatever it is, then it's fine. The main issue that I've got from a lot of questions that I've received here is people not sure about how it would look against their skin tone, and I completely understand that, because some of the colors, the African wax fabrics come in really vibrant colors and most times do not suit most skin tones. But then there are a range of these patterns that are created out there, and it's worth having a look and browsing through to find one that goes with your skin tones. It's also worth having a look at our hashtag #SewAnkara Fabric to see different people from different walks of life, African people, non-African people, who have used these fabrics to create something for themselves, by themselves. Another question here is, how do you feel about African wax produced outside Africa? It's fine because it wasn't actually African. It was brought to Africa and Africans adopted it, and it kind of became ingrained into especially West African culture, because of the tribal prints and because of the stories that were generated from the different prints on the fabrics and the type of material that it's made out of. The cotton fabric suited the climate. It's just remained and it's just stayed as part of the culture. Next question, how easy is it to sew Ankara fabrics? It's the easiest fabric to work with, I think. It's so easy. I love working with African wax fabric because you don't worry about all that movement slipping through, and it's so stable. It stays exactly where it's asked to stay. I actually think African wax fabric is ideal for a beginner because you won't have any issues whilst cutting, whilst handling, even it presses so nicely. The only issue I have with Ankara fabric is the patterns. Some of them come really bold and large and they can be quite hard to match, like making sure the patterns match when you have a seam. That's the tricky part, which is the reason why I always advise when you're selecting your fabrics to go for small scale prints rather than the large scale ones. The small scale prints are easier to manage, especially when you have garments with lots and lots of seams. would pre-washing your fabric remove the wax? It would remove it to some extent, but the high grade quality wax fabrics, you get rid of a bit of the wax, but you'll still have a bit of the wax on it. But I have here African wax fabric, and this is actually really high grade fabric, and it actually doesn't have any wax on it. It's not waxy, this one. It's just very cottony. So it doesn't, yeah, it depends on what quality you buy, the quality of the one you buy. Recommended patterns. As a guide, when you want to work with Ankara fabric, the best thing to do is to go for a sewing pattern with as little seams as possible. I know that the Anna dress by Hand London has, I think it has one dart, like just one bodice dart, and it doesn't have like sleeves, and it's just perfect for bold patterns, and basically any pattern without a princess seam is ideal for Ankara African wax fabric, unless you're working with a fabric that has small scale prints and patterns on it. I have a question here. Does it come in stretch, please? I've seen some Ankara style bikinis, and they were created using stretchy materials. So there are some companies that do manufacture stretch fabric with Ankara like style sort of patterns on them. You also get them. You also get these patterns on like really light drapey fabric, like satin fabric. In the fashion industry, is African wax print considered to be ethical and sustainable? Now, it is the cotton grade African wax fabrics are sustainable, but then you do get those ones with polyester mixes, and those are the ones that are not sustainable. I have a question here saying, can I quilt with Ankara fabric? Ankara fabric is ideal for quilting because it's cotton. Yeah, the really good ones are cotton. See, I have a question here saying not so much the wax ones, but how do you tell if they're actually cotton and the labels are misleading? They really are misleading, and you can only know which is a high grade one by asking the seller. You need to ask the seller if you're not buying it in person, but when you're buying in person, you can definitely feel it. When you scrunch it up, you can tell which is cotton. So when you scrunch up this fabric, you can tell that this is cotton, and when you scrunch up one that isn't cotton, you can tell. So the labels really are misleading. You can see that the fibers of this one, this is definitely cotton, but you do have those with a polyester mix. Okay, so another question here says, garments it does and doesn't really work for. Any garment that has a bit of structure is ideal for Ankara fabric. Any type of fabric that requires some drape, you need to stay away from Ankara fabric. So I give you an example. If you want to create jumpsuits, the Zadie jumpsuit by Paper Theory is ideal for Ankara fabric. And like I said earlier, the Anna pattern by Hand London is also ideal. So I have a question here saying, do you have any advice on caring for them and preserving the bright, vibrant colors? Spot washing, you just needed to spot wash them and air dry them, because just like you would care for your clothes, so they're more like, so they last longer, and they just preserve your clothes. The best thing to do is to spot wash them and not wash them every time they are worn. But then air drying is also important, and that is something that should be done for sustainability purposes anyway. Do share this video to anyone who you think would venture into working with African wax fabric anytime in the future. Remember, Ankara material is a fabric that is to be loved by everyone and appreciated. Yes, so here on the screen you would find some videos about working with African wax fabric and a little cheeky project for you to have a go at working with African wax fabric. Thanks for your time and all the best. Bye!